They fined me $2,200 for a shed they claimed was unapproved, even though the board president's brother built the same model 3 months earlier. By day 17, I'd found something buried under their own recorded plat they never expected anyone to read. Welcome to HOA Society. I'm Daniel Wright, civil engineer out of Lakeland, Florida. And before you scroll, hear me out. This story isn't just about one HOA gone wrong. It's about what happens when power forgets who pays the dues. If you've ever fought a rule book with your mortgage on the line, I want you here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? The shed wasn't the start. It was just the crack. The real wound came 2 years back, when my dad died in the house next door. He'd spent 38 years building that place block by block, brick coupons from old jobs, reclaimed oak for the porch rails. After the funeral, the board told me his picket fence violated current aesthetic guidelines. I had 14 days to repaint it or pay $75 a day. That was the first time I felt the edge of control they held, and I let it pass because grief makes you compliant. When I finally moved back into my father's home last spring, I swore I'd keep things quiet. I paid every quarterly assessment on time, $432 each, auto-drafted from my business account. But silence in an HOA is mistaken for weakness. It started with the notice. April 3rd, 9:42 a.m. Orange envelope, clear plastic window, stamped urgent violation. It claimed my new utility shed altered the community sightline. I had exactly 10 days to remove or face cumulative fines. I checked the CCRs line by line. Article 7, Section C, literally permitted auxiliary structures under 120 square feet, neutral color, setback 10 feet. Mine was 118 square feet, khaki beige, 12 feet from the rear fence. Still, they called a special meeting. When I showed up, Chelsea Blau. Her woman Gloria Dent smiled that kind of practice smile that makes you wonder how many mirrors she rehearses in. "Daniel, you're a smart man," she said, "but smart doesn't mean exempt." I told her I'd file an appeal. She said, "We control the appeals." That night, I sat at my kitchen table under the hum of the old fluorescent fixture my dad wired himself. I pulled the file drawer open. Maps, deeds, utility easements, the 1986 plat my father kept folded inside a Ziploc. I ran my fingers over the blue lines, and there it was. A drainage easement, 15 feet wide, running behind every lot on Oak Crescent. Mine included. The HOA had no jurisdiction over easement land. The shed sat squarely inside it. I called my old college friend Carla Ruiz, a municipal attorney who spent half her week untangling neighborhood boards. She laughed when she heard it. "They'll still double down," she said, "because they don't read plats, they read each other." By Friday, they'd taped a second notice to my front door. Photo time-stamped 7:06 a.m. Fine escalated to $2,400. I peeled it off slowly and flattened it under a coffee mug. The smell of toner stuck to my fingers. I told myself to stay calm, build a record, always lawful. That's rule 1. Sunday, I walked the block with my neighbor Hank, a retired lineman with a cough like sandpaper. He shook his head. "They did it to me last year over my truck, parked in my own driveway, said it wasn't aesthetically compliant." He spat in the gutter. "These people forget they're volunteers, not gods." It was Hank who told me about the storage lot behind the tennis courts, where Gloria's husband parked his commercial landscaping trailer, despite the covenant forbidding visible business use. He'd even poured a concrete pad, unpermitted. Knowledge nugget number 1. In Florida, selective enforcement can invalidate an HOA rule. If they ignore one violator, while fining another, they lose standing to enforce. I took photos from the public right-of-way, no trespass, all legal. 8:11 a.m. clear daylight, license plate visible. I backed them up with EXIF data and cloud storage because evidence without metadata is just a story. That evening, I sent a certified letter, receipt number 7023-060-004-8887, formally requesting inspection of financial records per Florida Statute 720.303.5. They had 10 business days. Day 1 started Monday. If you've ever been bullied by an HOA, drop a comment and tell me how you fought back, or the tactic you wish you'd used. And if you're watching from an HOA right now, leave your message for them here. Let's make this count. By the following Thursday, the management company, Bright Bridge Property Services, called to clarify my request. I clarified in writing. Always written, never verbal. They hate paper trails. When the packet arrived, 2 weeks late, it was incomplete. Missing check registers, no vendor invoices, no signed meeting minutes for January. But one page caught my eye. A disbursement of $14,800 to Oak Crescent Reserve Improvement Fund. Except the reserve account balance on the next page was $0. Money moved, but never landed. I circled the line item in red pencil and felt the air in my chest change temperature. My dad used to say, "Find the numbers and you'll find the nerve." The following night, as rain began to hiss against the screens, a bright flash lit my yard. A phone camera, quick, then gone. I stepped out barefoot, gravel biting my feet, but whoever it was disappeared into the streetlight halo. The next morning, a new violation waited in my mailbox. Improper exterior lighting. I laughed once. Then I opened a new file folder labeled Retaliation Log 1 and started numbering. By week 3, the fines totaled $4,800. Every envelope was a copy of the last. Same typeface, same perfumed stationery, like they were proud of it. Pet each to a poster board in order of arrival. The display filled half my hallway wall. My son, Ethan, age 12, stared at it like a museum exhibit. "Are they allowed to do that, Dad?" he asked. "They're supposed to follow the law too, right?" That question cut deeper than the fines. He still wore my old Little League cap, the one Grandpa gave him before the stroke. I told him, "They have to, son. It's just that sometimes you have to remind them of it." The HOA's special compliance hearing was set for May 22nd, 6 p.m. in the community center. I showed up in a clean blue shirt and tie, binder in hand. Gloria sat at the center of a folding table draped with a maroon cloth, flanked by 2 board members who never looked up from their clipboards. She opened with a line that was supposed to sound professional. "We're here to discuss ongoing non-compliance by Mr. Daniel Wright regarding unapproved construction." I said, "You're aware of the drainage easement recorded under Plat Book 43, page 191, correct?" She blinked. "That's irrelevant to visual conformity standards." I laid out an 11/17 copy of the county record. "Actually, it's jurisdictional. You can't regulate what you don't own." The room murmured. One of the younger members, a guy named Rob, leaned in to squint. Gloria's jaw tightened. "You think you know better than the architectural committee?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I know how to read a map." They called for a vote, 3-1 in favor of upholding the fine. Rob abstained. He looked apologetic, but not enough to matter. Outside, the dusk air was heavy with sprinkler mist. Hank waited by the railing, puffing on his inhaler. "They already printed your name in the June newsletter," he said. "Called you a non-compliant resident with pending legal action." I smiled faintly. "Good. That means they're nervous." Back home, Carla sent me a message. Check. County permit logs for 2022. Look for any filings under Oak Crescent HOA or Bright Bridge. I pulled the records portal up and found 6 amenity improvements listed, totaling $92,400. None had inspection sign-offs. Not one. I printed the lot layouts and spread them across my kitchen table like battle maps. One item stood out. Storage facility expansion. Permitted March 2022. Parcel number 031-778. Authorized agent, G. Dent. The parcel was actually a common area easement, not HOA owned, meaning she'd built on land deeded to the city for stormwater overflow. Knowledge nugget number 2. In most states, HOAs can maintain, but not modify, dedicated public easements without municipal consent. Doing so can void insurance coverage and expose the board personally. I called the county engineering office. The tech on duty, Miles, remembered me from a drainage survey last year. "If they poured concrete there," he said, "they just built on a floodway. That's a code 215 violation. Send me pics." I did. By morning, he'd filed an internal review request. Gloria must have sensed the tremor. The next afternoon, I got a courtesy call from the HOA attorney, Vincent Lyle. His tone was all velvet threat. "Mr. Wright, litigation's expensive. My client would prefer voluntary compliance." I said, "So would I. You can start by returning $14,800 to the reserve account." He went silent long enough for me to hear the faint hum of fluorescent ballast on his end. Then, "We'll be in touch." That night, I noticed two board members idling at the end of my cul-de-sac in a golf cart. I stepped out, camera on, timestamp rolling. They sped off when I raised the phone. I uploaded the clip to cloud backup labeled Surveillance 2023-05-29.move. The harassment ramped. Anonymous notes in my mailbox. "We know what you're doing." A bogus noise complaint. 2 wellness checks from local police at 2 a.m. The officer the second time, same one both nights, looked embarrassed. "Sorry, sir, we have to respond. Hen, it's called in." I kept my voice even. "Understood, Officer Lang. Mind signing this log to confirm call time?" He hesitated, then signed. Evidence number 22. One morning, a smear post hit the community Facebook group accusing me of stealing association records. They attached a blurry photo of me carrying my binder. I replied only once. Certified request dated April 10th, acknowledged May 1st, Statute 720.303. Transparency is not theft. The post vanished an hour later. If you're firmly anti-HOA, let me know how you'd handle a setup like that. Or if you've ever seen a board abuse a wellness check just to intimidate someone, tell your story so others know the playbook. And if you've never lived through one, look at the comments. You'll see what people put up with daily. By mid-June, Carla and I had a plan. She drafted a quiet letter assigning rights under the original development easement to an anonymous trust, registered through a friend of hers, legal and clean. That trust would hold inspection and access rights over the disputed common areas. We'd let the HOA hang itself first, then pull the lever. I remember the smell of the ink when I signed, metallic and final. I locked the document in a fireproof box under my desk. It wasn't time yet. Patience wins wars that rage on paper. 3 days later, a new letter arrived, notice of lien intent. They'd attached a mock ledger showing $6,600 in unpaid fines. I read it twice, then smiled. Under Florida law, no HOA lien can be filed until 90 days after written notice, and only for assessments, not disputed penalties. They just mailed me evidence of premature intent, a procedural grenade if I needed it. I poured myself a black coffee, sat by the window, and listened to the sprinkler hiss in my neighbor's yard. Across the street, Gloria's husband was pressure washing his illegal pad again, the sound like static chewing throughs. Rough my calm. I filmed exactly 40 seconds of footage with the parcel number in frame. That was enough. Miles from the county called that afternoon. "Your suspicion checks out," he said. "That pad violates flood code. We're issuing a notice of non-compliance to the HOA tomorrow." He paused. "Off the record, Daniel. Why are you still living there?" I didn't answer right away. "Because it's my father's porch I drink coffee on every morning, and I'm not leaving it to people who treat law like decoration." He chuckled softly. "Fair." That night, Hank stopped by with a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper. He leaned on the porch rail, the wood creaking under his weight. "They sent me another violation," he said, holding it up. "Grass too long. It's 2.5 inches, Daniel. I measured." I looked at the slip, shook my head. "They're baiting you. Don't react." He took a sip. "You got a plan?" "Almost," I said, "but I need them to feel safe first." I spent the next week digging into bank filings. Brightbridge's vendor account listed a separate EIN under Oak Crescent Maintenance Trust. Registered agent? Gloria's cousin. The same cousin who bid $18,000 for landscaping renewals in April, an internal kickback disguised as a contract. Knowledge nugget number 3. In most states, board members must disclose conflicts of interest and recuse from related votes. Failing to do so can void contracts and trigger civil penalties under fiduciary breach. I printed every document, cross-referenced dates, and tabbed them in my binder with fluorescent markers. Red for financials, blue for easements, yellow for correspondence. The binder weighed 9 pounds by the time I was done. When I called Carla to review, she whistled. "This is more organized than half the cases I try. You ready to let them fall?" "Not yet," I said. "Let them stack one more violation. They're close to hanging themselves." She laughed. "You're your father's son." The following Monday, an HOA patrol volunteer snapped photos of My mailbox. Front, side, even the flag. The next morning's letter accused me of non-standard color tone, a $250 fine. I compared the paint chip to the official Sherwin-Williams Almond 02. It was identical. I didn't even flinch. I just wrote violation number 27, color fabricated in the log, and slipped the sheet into its sleeve. Documentation was oxygen now. Later that week, I sat quietly at the back of the open board meeting. They didn't notice me at first. Gloria bragged about our proactive compliance program to a dozen attendees. I waited until she mentioned reserves improving. Then I stood. "Excuse me," I said, voice steady. "Would you confirm the current reserve balance?" Her eyes darted. "That's internal data. Florida Statute 720.3034J makes it public," I replied. "So what's the number?" No one spoke. You could hear the ceiling fan tick. When I left, a younger resident caught me outside, a teacher named Monica. "You're Daniel, right? I read your reply on Facebook. I didn't know we could ask for financials." "You can," I said. "They just don't expect you to." She smiled nervously. "If you ever need signatures for anything, I'll help." Her words stayed with me longer than I expected. For the first time, I wasn't just fighting alone. If you've ever been through something like this, tell me. How far should an HOA control your property line, your porch, your mailbox? Where's the line between community standard and personal space? Drop it below, or at least like the video so others find it. The next morning, Carla sent me a text. News dropped. County cited them. $2,000 fine for stormwater encroachment. By sunset, the HOA group chat was chaos. Residents demanding answers. Gloria spinning stories about administrative misunderstandings. I stayed quiet. Let the current shift. At 9:14 p.m., I got an email from Vincent, the HOA attorney. "Your interference has caused reputational damage. Cease correspondence with staff immediately." I forwarded it to Carla, who wrote back one word: perfect. By mid-July, the neighborhood tension was thick enough to taste. People stopped waving. The board printed a memo accusing certain residents of spreading misinformation. It wasn't even subtle. They bolded residents like it was a curse word. That Saturday, I saw Gloria at the community pool, reclining on a lounge chair in a wide-brim hat, sunglasses reflecting the water. I walked over calmly, every step measured. "You'll want to fix the reserve balance report before Monday," I said. "It's missing nearly $15,000. She didn't move her head, just shifted her glass. "You really should consider selling, Daniel. You'd be happier somewhere that appreciates your independence." I leaned closer. "You ever notice the more people say appreciate, the less they mean it?" She smiled, small and cold. "You don't scare me." "I'm not here to scare you," I said quietly. "I'm here to audit you." I turned away before she could respond. The sound of the pool filter masked the pulse in my throat. That night, Hank knocked on my door, sweating through his work shirt. They just held an emergency meeting, passed a special assessment for security upgrades. $2,000 per house. I blinked. Security from what? He raised an eyebrow. From you, apparently. Knowledge nugget number 4. Under Florida Statute 720.308, any special assessment requires notice and a majority vote of all owners, not just the board. Unauthorized assessments are unenforceable and can constitute breach of fiduciary duty. I opened my laptop, typed an anonymous email from the trust's address to every homeowner. Notice of unauthorized assessment. No valid vote recorded. Payment may expose you to double liability. Attached. Statute link. Board minutes proving no quorum. Within 24 hours, the community group exploded. 47 replies in the thread, all variations of, "Is this true? Why didn't hit? At we vote? Where's the money?" Gloria scheduled an emergency town forum for Friday. Carla told me to attend quietly. Observe, don't strike yet. "They'll panic," she said. And panic creates recordable errors. Friday came thick with humidity. The air smelled like ozone and wet asphalt. The hall was packed, 50 residents, folding chairs scraping tile, fans humming uselessly. Gloria opened with a brittle tone. "Misinformation is circulating. The board operates fully within our authority." I sat 3 rows back, binder on my lap. She scanned the room, trying to spot me, but I'd changed my seat at the last minute. Rob, the younger board member, stood unexpectedly. With respect, Gloria, I didn't vote on that assessment, and neither did Hank or anyone else. Murmurs rippled through the room. She hissed, "This is internal business, Rob." He shook his head. "Internal stopped when you used member funds for your cousin's company." I could see the blood drain from her face. She tried to recover, voice trembling just enough to reveal the fracture. "That's a baseless claim." I clicked my pen, loud, deliberate, and held up a copy of the disbursement ledger. "Actually," I said, "it's Exhibit B." Every head turned. A reporter from the local paper, The Ledger, was sitting in the back. I hadn't invited her, but Monica must have tipped her off. She raised her phone and started recording. Gloria's voice cracked. "Sir, this is a private association meeting." I replied calm and clear. "Florida's sunshine laws exempt HOAs only if the topic doesn't involve member assessments or elections. This one does, so yes, she can record." The room erupted in whispers and phone cameras clicking open. Gloria slammed her gavel. "Meeting adjourned!" She stormed out, heels echoing across the tile. I stayed seated. There was no need to chase her. The recorders already had what mattered. Aft, the crowd thinned. Rob approached. "She'll come after you harder now." "She already has," I said, flipping my binder closed. "It's almost time." He hesitated, then extended his hand. "If you need a witness for anything, I'll sign." Outside, the night was warm and loud with crickets. I could smell rain in the distance, that electric pre-storm scent that makes your skin prickle. I looked back at the meeting hall, the lights still flickering from her rushed exit, and felt the shift. If you were in my shoes, what would you do next? File a lawsuit, or let the state inspectors handle it? I'm curious, how far would you take it when they break their own bylaws? Comment below. Your stories might teach the next person how to stand firm. Back home, I sat at my desk, pulled out the fireproof box, and lifted the sealed document. The assignment of rights. The trust now controlled inspection access over every shared parcel, including that concrete pad. The leverage was real, and the clock was ticking. I texted Carla one line, "Ready to pull the trigger." She replied instantly, "Tuesday, 9 a.m., county review hearing. Bring the binder." I closed my eyes, heard the soft tick of my wall clock, and felt my heartbeat match its rhythm. The next step would decide everything. By Monday morning, the HOA's retaliation had reached its peak. I woke to find my mailbox open, letters scattered like confetti across the wet lawn. Every envelope was stamped, "Final Notice." The sprinkler system clicked on mid-collection, soaking the paper until the ink ran like blood. I gathered each piece, pressed them flat on my porch table, and took high-res photos, proof of tampering, time-stamped 6:43 a.m. By 9 a.m., Brightbridge sent another email. Immediate lien filing scheduled for 7/28. It was the same violation stack, copy-pasted, same typos. They weren't even pretending to follow statute anymore. That told me they were scared. Ethan watched from the window, worry drawn across his 12-year-old face. "Are they going to take our house?" I crouched beside him. "Not a chance, buddy. Remember what Grandpa used to say? The law's slow, but it's steady. You just have to keep your papers dry." That night, thunder cracked over the lake, and with it came the fear beat I hadn't let myself feel until then. Someone had unscrewed the motion sensor on my side gate. The bulb lay shattered on the grass. I felt the cold rush of adrenaline, the quiet rage under my ribs. I replaced it, mounted a camera, and emailed the footage straight to Carla and Officer Lang. "If they cross the fence line," she said, "you call me before you call anyone else." By Thursday, it was clear the HOA had overplayed. Their security upgrade invoices were already hitting mailboxes, and residents were furious. Hank called. "They charged us $2,000 for cameras that don't exist. I checked the line item. They paid a company that isn't even registered in the state." I nodded into the phone. That's the crack we needed. The next day, I walked into the county review hearing carrying my 9-pound binder. The air inside the building was cool and dry, smelling faintly of old toner and coffee. A clerk led me to a waiting area with plastic chairs that squeaked when you sat down. Gloria was already there, in a navy suit, her lawyer Vincent beside her. She didn't look at me, just whispered something to him while pretending to read a brief. When the inspector called us in, the room hummed with fluorescent light. "This hearing regards unauthorized construction on parcel 031-778, he began. "Mr. Wright, you're listed as a complainant?" "Yes, sir," I said, "and as holder of assigned inspection rights under the 1986 stormwater easement." Vincent's head snapped up. "Assigned? What?" I placed the document on the table, sealed, notarized, and recorded 2 days prior. Per recorded instrument number 2023-4441 scene, my trust holds non-exclusive inspection authority over all easement lay, and within Oak Crescent, including the improved area in question. The inspector examined it, then nodded slowly. "That's legitimate." He turned to Gloria. "Ma'am, did your board secure municipal permission before pouring this concrete?" She swallowed hard. It was maintenance, not construction. The inspector flipped a photo toward her, the one I'd taken months ago. "Maintenance doesn't require rebar." Silence. After 10 minutes of procedural summary, he signed the citation in front of us. HOA ordered to remove unauthorized structure within 30 days, failure subject to civil penalty, and revocation of operating certificate for common facilities. Gloria stood frozen, lips pressed thin. I gathered my papers quietly. As I turned to leave, I said softly enough for only her to hear, "That's one." Outside, the July sun hit like a furnace. Carla met me at the curb, grinning behind her sunglasses. "You just pulled reversal number 1. Feel good?" I exhaled. Like setting down a stone I've been carrying for months. But the board didn't back down, they doubled down. 2 days later, a rumor spread that I'd forged documents to humiliate the association. A newsletter accused me of endangering property values. Someone even mailed a fake notice claiming I was under investigation by the county. I traced the postage. Same batch used by Brightbridge. Amateur work. That night, while logging the new violations, Ethan came in holding his sketchbook. "I drew Grandpa's porch," he said. The drawing showed the house under bright blue skies, no orange envelopes, no cameras, just calm. I looked at it for a long time before saying, "That's what we're building back, kid." If you've ever faced this kind of smear, neighbors turning cold, false accusations mailed under your door, tell me how you handled it. Would you fight it in court or outlast it in daylight? I want to hear what works, because this is where most people quit. By the weekend, the board led an extraordinary meeting to discuss property management transition. The wording was bureaucratic camouflage, but I knew what it meant. They were panicking. And panic, as Carla liked to say, writes confessions in ink. I packed my binder again. Next stop, the HOA's own clubhouse. And this time, I wasn't coming as a resident. I was coming as the man who legally owned their access rights. The meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, 7 p.m. I arrived at 6:55 sharp, binder under my arm, camera pen clipped to my pocket. The Florida twilight was thick, mosquitoes humming near the hedges as I crossed the lot. Inside, the clubhouse smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee, the scent of bureaucracy under stress. They'd filled every folding chair, maybe 70 residents, some curious, others angry. Gloria sat at the front table, face powdered too heavily under the fluorescent lights. To her left, Vincent the attorney whispered in her ear. To her right, a motion recorder blinked red. Perfect. Record on their end meant record on mine. The room went silent when I stepped up. "Evening," I said. My voice carried easily, calm but sharp. "I'm here under the authority of the Right Inspection Trust, holder of active rights for all shared parcels as of July 11, 2023. We'll be conducting a compliance walkthrough after this meeting." Gloria slammed her gavel. "You can't just—" "Yes, I can," I interrupted gently, handing her a certified copy of the recorded assignment. "And per statute 720.3035b, you're required to cooperate with any rights holder inspection relevant to drainage or public safety, which this is." A murmur rippled through the room. Rob, the younger board member, leaned forward. "Is this legit?" Vincent squinted at the paper, lips tightening as he read. Finally, he muttered, "It's legitimate. He owns inspection access through the easement chain." Gloria's eyebrows flashed, but before she could speak, a uniformed county compliance officer stepped through the door. Miles, clipboard in hand, badge clipped to his pocket. The timing was surgical. "Evening, folks," he said, nodding toward me. "We're here to confirm safety conditions and stormwater access. Mr. Wright's authorization checks out." That was my neutral authority, the law in the room. I gestured politely toward the back doors. "We'll begin outside. You're welcome to observe." We walked the perimeter in a slow procession, residents trailing behind like a curious jury. When we reached the illegal pad, the fresh paint line still gleaming, Miles crouched down, tapped his pen on the concrete. "Grade's wrong," he said. "Water pools toward the playground. They'll have to cut this out and regrade." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Someone muttered, "They spent 15 grand on that." I stood silent, letting the sound of realization do the talking. Gloria's face tightened, the pink in her cheeks gone gray under the parking lot lights. Miles signed the inspection log and handed me a copy. "You'll get the full report in 72 hours. "Appreciate it," I said, shaking his hand. The moment his pen clicked shut, I knew the dominoes had started. Inside, residents were buzzing, some recording, some arguing. Hank came up beside me, voice low. "You just leveled the field." "Not yet," I said. "But they're standing on the slope now." That night, I drove home with the windows down, binder on the passenger seat. The air smelled of rain and cut grass. For the first time in months, I felt my shoulders lower. But peace never lasts long when paper trails start burning. The next morning, Gloria emailed a cease and desist letter accusing me of defamation and unauthorized inspection. Carla laughed when she read it. "They're swinging blind," she said, "and you already have the legal weight behind you. Let them exhaust themselves." By evening, the board's own insurance provider had suspended coverage pending investigation. Without insurance, the HOA couldn't function legally. Their management contract required active liability protection. That was the first domino. Monica, the teacher, stopped by my driveway as I was taking out the trash. "You didn't just win for yourself," she said. "Half the neighborhood's talking about recalling the board. People are signing a petition." I smiled faintly. "Make sure they do it by the book. No shortcuts." She nodded. "You're kind of scary, Daniel." "Just allergic to hypocrisy," I said. "If you were standing here, knowing you'd finally turned the tide, what would you do next? Push for a total takedown or negotiate for reforms? Drop your thoughts. I'm curious how far you'd go when the power starts cracking." That night, under the porch light my dad wired 30 years ago, I flipped open my binder one more time. The inspection report, the bank records, the parcel maps, all neatly tabbed, ready for the next move. Visual beat number 1 happened quietly then. I took the original violation notice, the first one they ever taped to my door, and dropped it into the fire pit. The paper curled, blackened, and lifted as ash, a reminder that even paper bullies can burn. I texted Carla. "All dominoes aligned. Next meeting, 8/2. She replied, "Bring the hammer." By the time August 2nd arrived, the air over Oak Crescent felt electric, humid, restless, ready to split. Word had spread. The board was holding an extraordinary compliance session to discuss insurance issues and false claims against the HOA. Translation: damage control. I parked 3 houses down to avoid the line of cameras already forming near the clubhouse doors. The local reporter was there again, ponytail tight, microphone wrapped in a plastic sleeve against the evening drizzle. She spotted me, nodded once, and turned her camera toward the entry. The moment had come. Inside, the room buzzed like a beehive, dozens of residents murmuring, some filming on their phones, others holding copies of the petition Monica organized. Over half the homeowners had signed, demanding a full board election. Hank stood near the back, arms crossed, a quiet grin under his gray mustache. Gloria called the meeting to order, voice trembling but defiant. "These rumors of financial misconduct are exaggerated. The association remains solvent and compliant with state law." I stepped forward, binder in hand, pulse steady. "Then you won't mind if we review the facts." She slammed the gavel once. "Mr. Wright, you are not recognized." I placed my binder on the table anyway, metal rings clacking like handcuffs. "I don't need recognition. I have authority." Vincent started to object, but I was already speaking. "Here's the county inspection report. Issued last week. The pad behind the tennis court violates Code 215. Here's the proof of funds transfer to a company owned by your relative without disclosure or vote. And here, I flipped another page, letting the paper slap the table, is the notice from your insurer suspending coverage as of July 31st. Without it, this HOA cannot lawfully operate. The room erupted. Residents shouting, phones up, flashlights clicking on. Gloria's voice cracked through the noise. You're trying to destroy this community. No, I said, steady and clear, the kind of quiet that cuts louder than yelling. I'm trying to rebuild it. Then Miles stepped in, the same county compliance officer from before, flanked by 2 deputies. The room froze. Rain pattered against the tall windows, streaking down like tears on glass. Effective immediately, Miles said, reading from a clipboard. The county is placing Oak Crescent HOA under provisional review for administrative violations. All enforcement activity is suspended pending resolution. The silence that followed was pure oxygen. One deputy collected the board's meeting gavel and binder. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Visual beat number 2. Miles set the microphone back on the podium, rain beaded, glinting under fluorescent light, and nodded toward me. Mr. Wright, your documentation's in order. You did this right. Gloria's shoulders sagged. For a second, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, deflated authority under public light. She muttered something I couldn't hear, then walked out as residents clapped, some softly, some with cathartic fury. Rob stepped forward. Motion to dissolve current board pending election. Hands shot up. 20, 30, then almost everyone. Unanimous. When it ended, the reporter caught me outside, rain soaking through my shirt. Daniel, what happens now? She asked. I smiled faintly. We stop surviving each other and start governing ourselves. She tilted her head. Do you regret any of it? I looked at the puddles reflecting the streetlights. Regret's expensive, accountability's free if you're willing to pay attention. That night, I sat at my desk, every document now public record. The dominoes had fallen, but the story wasn't done. It never is, not until reform replaces revenge. If you were in my place, would you have traded your leverage for reform, or kept pressing until they paid every dollar back? Let me know below. What's justice worth to you when the damage is communal, not personal? My phone buzzed with a message from Carla. They'll call tomorrow, offer a deal. Don't accept the first one. I stared at the text, knowing the second reversal was already forming like lightning behind a cloud. The power wasn't mine to hold forever. It was meant to build something better. The next morning, the HOA interim chair emailed me a proposal. Full board resignation in exchange for halting civil claims. Attached W's. Your draft reforms, term limits, transparent budgets, open meetings, audit committees. It was everything we'd fought for, on paper. But I didn't reply yet. I wanted one more thing first. I waited until dusk before responding. The neighborhood had gone eerily quiet, the kind of silence that follows a long storm. Streetlights flickered on, glinting off the puddles in the cul-de-sac. From my porch, I could hear Hank's TV murmuring through an open window, the comforting sound of ordinary life returning. I opened my laptop and typed slowly, choosing every word as carefully as I'd measured every setback these past months. To the interim chair and members of Oak Crescent HOA, I will agree to your proposed reforms under the following additional condition. All financial records from 2018 onward will be publicly archived online, accessible to any homeowner without fee or written request. Transparency doesn't require permission, it requires light. I hit send at 8:07 p.m. The whoosh of the email leaving felt like exhaling a held breath that had lasted half a year. 10 minutes later, a reply came through. Accepted. That was reversal number 2. The next morning, Gloria officially resigned. No speech, no spin, just a single line emailed through the management company. Effective immediately, I stepped down. Vincent withdrew his legal services the same day, due to irreconcilable conflicts. The county finalized its review with a written directive, mandatory quarterly audits, 2-year board term limits, open meeting live streams, and a new charter provision preventing any family or business ties among vendors. The words felt cleaner than any victory could. Structural reform, not just revenge. 2 weeks later, we held our first reconstituted community meeting. It was outside, on the green near the playground. Under string lights, someone's kid had hung from a pine. No gavel, no table barrier, just folding chairs in a circle. Hank stood beside me, reading the minutes aloud with the slow steadiness of a man who'd seen too many fights end the wrong way. Monica presented too. He knew community access charter, her hands trembling slightly when she said, "We're homeowners, not hostages." The crowd applauded. I caught sight of Ethan sitting cross-legged in the grass, sketchbook open, drawing the same porch he'd shown me before, only this time he'd added people standing together, no fences between them. During closing comments, the reporter, now a neighbor volunteer, asked if I'd say a few words. I hesitated, then stood. "I started this thinking I was fighting for my house," I said. "But what I learned is that a house isn't just walls. It's a record. Every nail, every signature, every meeting minute adds up to something called community. We lose it when we stop checking the math." I looked out at the faces, tired, relieved, maybe a little hopeful. So keep your papers, keep your patience, and keep your neighbors. That's how we win. If you believe I fought the right way, and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so future videos reach you first. As responsible citizens, share this so others learn and get inspired. That's on us now. Visual beat number 3 came as the meeting ended. I placed my father's old ink stamp, the one that read "Paid in Full," on the podium beside the new ledger book. I pressed it down once, firm and final, leaving a red mark on the first clean page of our Reformed Association. After that, things changed fast. The new board restored the playground equipment, cut annual dues by 10%, and launched a legacy garden program for residents over 60. The county dropped all pending penalties once compliance was confirmed. A year later, the Lakeland Ledger ran a short piece titled "From Conflict to Charter: How One HOA Rebuilt Trust." They quoted one line I'd said that night: "Justice doesn't need noise, it needs record-keeping." Now, sometimes on quiet evenings, I sit on the porch with Ethan and Hank, watching the sprinklers arc across even lawns. The sound's the same as before, but the peace feels earned. My dad's fence still stands unpainted, weathered but steady, and every time I see that old oak at the corner catching the sunset, I think, this street remembers who fought for it. I close my eyes, breathe the damp Florida air, and whisper to myself, "Next case."